Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Punaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahi Tejasvinavadidamastu Ma Vitvishavahe. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. Have you ever walked into a spiritual space and immediately felt something? A presence, a peace, a feeling of devotion? Today, I want to talk about altars and why an altar is far more than decoration. Because somewhere along the way, especially online, altars sometimes become reduced to aesthetics. Namaste and welcome to the Spiritual Wealth Podcast. I'm your host, Alexandra Savithri Amba, director of the American Reiki Academy and the Vedic Healing Center. I'm a Reiki master, Vedic Healing master and priestess, and spiritual guide who's practiced and taught spiritual self-development and healing for more than 35 years, led pilgrimages to India, and studied with blessed Indian gurus. In this show, we cover topics related to metaphysics, Reiki, Vedic healing, manifestation, spiritual growth, and feng shui, based upon my studies and work in these disciplines. The aim of this show is to help you awaken, develop, and tap into your spiritual power in order that you may live well, manifest your dreams, and ultimately fulfill your unique divine destiny. So welcome to this episode. And today I felt inclined to speak about altars. And before I start, I want to just preface this and say something that might be maybe controversial. I want to say an altar is not religious. So if you are thinking, I don't really have a religious inclination, I want you to approach this episode with an open mind, and we're going to think about and work with and delve into the topic of altars as a spiritual force and how they can help shift things in your environment and in your life, ultimately. Now, I said in the introduction here that somewhere along the way, I believe that altars have become reduced sometimes to a kind of aesthetic depiction. And, you might see beautiful crystals, candles, incense, statues. And while beauty absolutely has a place in spiritual life, a true altar is not simply something you decorate and leave alone. Actually, an altar is a relationship. It is a breathing force field and a living relationship between yourself and the divine wisdom, source energy, God, something greater. And so, again, I'm trying to distinguish this from something religious, but you can take from this what works for you. So I think this is something, this idea of a relationship, something that ancient traditions understood deeply. In devotional traditions, we make offerings, flowers, water, incense, light, prayer, food, even clothing, mantras, and not because this is really important. And I wrote this down the other day. The divine does not need these things. The divine does not need your flowers or incense, but you need to offer them. And what I mean by that is that offering changes you. It calms everything down inside of you. It creates humility. It evokes presence, reverence, and most of all, it develops a relationship. And this is why I believe an altar is meant to become alive over time. Not alive in some great dramatic sense, although there have been, interestingly, there have been incredible miracles that have occurred. You, I'm sure, have heard about miracles around the world in different religious traditions with sacred spaces or altars. And I'm thinking of one in India, actually, where Ganesh, the beloved deity Ganesh, began to drink milk, and some of the Sai Baba altars, vibhuti, sacred ash, began to flow and manifest spontaneously. But it's not really spontaneous. It's through the devotion and the prayers of the people that are caring for that altar, and also through something greater, through, I would say, a timing for sure, and also perhaps, I'm trying to think of the word, it's just something that was meant to be in that space. It's not serendipity, it's not synchronicity, it's something that was meant to occur in that space. So that space had, for instance, a destiny to attract, to like Lourdes in France had a destiny to attract on the earth seekers, pilgrims. So there's a vortex that is perhaps inherent there that we may not know. So this is why I believe that your altar becomes alive through your attention. This means your prayers, your consistency, your the energy you bring daily. Over time, that altar becomes a sacred meeting place between you, the spiritual being having a human experience and identifying very much with the human condition, and the divine. So it's going to remind you of your spiritual nature also, because often we get stuck in the struggles of the human body. So the altar is a place you return to yourself, to your true nature, to that essence, to that light within. It's a place where you listen. Perhaps you cry. Perhaps you ask for guidance. It's where you sit in silence. And I think at this time on the planet, this is very important to understand, because many people are spiritually hungry. There is incredible stress on this planet and an acceleration of, or an amplification maybe, of stress, partly due to the speed at which everything is going. And so an altar gives you a place to connect. And there is, I would assert, also a disconnection from devotional practice. So there's a difference between consuming spirituality and relating, actually deep relating. And that relationship requires participation. It requires you to commit, to show up, it requires it invokes reciprocity also. Again, it's a relationship. So as you show up and as you make offerings and as you create your space, you invoke and call forth that reciprocity. And this is why offerings exist in so many traditions around the world. I remember traveling in Italy a long time ago, and I'm originally of Italian descent, and seeing the beautiful altars in the streets. So pretty everywhere you go, the little like mini grottos with the Virgin Mary and the flowers. And of course, in India, this is all over the place. You cannot avoid it. But this idea of relating with your altar represents to me a yin and yang. It's a flow. It's an exchange. Let's call it a sacred exchange. And again, not because the divine wisdom lacks anything. It is because the human heart transforms through devotion. It's where you remember your real essence. So I would say some of the deepest spiritual moments in my life did not happen in large dramatic settings. And I'm choking up as I think of this, because when I was initiated in India in 1998, I leave all these choked up moments in here. Okay. When I was initiated in 1998 by my guru in Vedic healing, and the choked up moments stay in here because I want you to know how real this path is for me. And I guess I also want you to know how real your tears are. Okay. And sometimes the tears are tears of gratitude. Okay, so in 1998, I was initiated in Vedic healing in a temple, a little tiny temple in Bangalore, India. And this temple, what's interesting is it was not anything fancy. It was in, as I said, a little village, and most people, in Bangalore probably never knew of it. Probably just the locals knew, or what happens with these really special spots is you find out about them kind of through a secret underground network. And so my guru said, I want to initiate you at this temple. And I pictured this great, big temple, and I was excited to go. So we go to this temple, and it's tiny. It's okay. I can't say it's nothing, but to an outsider, it was nothing. It was a room, one room, and there was a Hanuman. Hanuman is the deity of miracles. He represents also the superhuman strength within us all, and he represents incredible devotion to good causes and to the divine wisdom. So this Hanuman was also not anything elaborate. The story goes that there was a rock, and this is not an unusual story, because these kinds of places exist in India and probably other parts of the world. I speak about India a lot because that has been my largest adult spiritual influence, although I grew up with other spiritual inclinations that I'll speak about in another episode, perhaps. So this temple was, as the story goes, was simply a rock out in the middle of nowhere. And a man who was suffering, as we all do, but believed very much in the divine wisdom, began making prayers there to Hanuman and worshiping at this rock and offering flowers at this rock. And in time, the rock transformed into an image of Hanuman. Now, you may say that is fantastical, or that is, I don't know, unbelievable. Or you may say, oh, that's incredible, like I did. But I'm telling you this as a way to express this notion that your altar is an ongoing presence that you interact with. And so eventually, over time, that space where the man had been praying transformed into a visible deity that looked like Hanuman. It may not have been the most beautifully hand-carved depiction. It may have still been a bit abstract, but to a devotee, it was not abstract at all. And you can visibly see Hanuman. And now a small temple has been built around that space. And so I've had several times where I've returned to that space since 1998, and beautiful experiences there. It's a little tiny temple in a village, and the village has now grown around it, so there is more activity. But incredible experiences I have had there, and continue to have when I return there. That place will always hold, of course, a very dear spot in my heart. So you may find yourself interacting with different temples, churches, spiritual vortexes, altars within these spaces. So this episode is about altars. Now, an altar is a concentrated form of divine energy, protection, and power. So it's typically located inside a structure, inside a church, inside a temple. We talk about the altar as being the most sacred space. And just witness as you interact with these altars in life, what happens to you. Start to be a witness. So some of the, as I said, some of the deepest moments in my own life did not happen in large dramatic settings, although I've been to incredible spiritual vortexes and temples and even churches as well. On my path, I embrace different lineages and traditions, and you can witness what happens with the lighting of a candle, with the chanting, with sitting before an altar. Some of the things we do in the Vedic lineage, again, we offer flowers, food, we chant mantras, and we listen. See, this is something that many people don't do at their altar. They sit and they pray, but they forget to listen. So listening is part of the experience of interacting with the altar, because, again, it is a relationship, a reciprocal experience. So make sure, when I said before, it is yin and yang, make sure your interaction with your altar is not just yang. It's not just male energy. It's not just you going and doing something. So the doing is the male energy. And make sure there is the yin, there is the receiving. Because here's the thing. The divine wisdom is communicating with us always. I think I said this in If We Can Be Quiet Enough to Hear and Intuit and See the Messages. I think I said this in another episode. I had a friend once who, a dear friend who was doing a 40-day juice fast on just green juices, and we went for a hike during these 40 days. He had a lot of energy too. And he said to me, I know this is going to sound strange, but I can hear the plants communicating. And he said, what's more, they're communicating with us all the time, but we're not able to hear them. So it's really the same concept. With your altar. Your altar, now you may say the plant is a living being, and the altar is, okay, I've heard this before, just a statue. Well, in the Vedic tradition, we don't worship statues. What happens is the statue is created by the artist, and that is the first Shakti that goes into the statue, right? So the statue is carved out of wood or stone or marble, whatever and metal. So that the statue is created in some way. And the statue is formed by the artist, by the artisan. And this is also a very sacred art in India. It's a spiritual calling. So the statue gets transformed, or it gets formed into a deity form, right? So you could have a statue that's a statue of a cat or a dog or a deity. So and nothing wrong with the little statues of the cats and the dogs. So the deity, let's say you are working with a statue that has been transformed into the deity form of Ganesh, who is an aspect of the divine. Now, that deity is so interesting, becomes transformed into an energetic object fit to worship. So he moves from being an artistic sculpture of a deity into what is called a murti. A murti is the deity who has been given life. So who gives life to that murti? Life is given by the practitioner, the spiritual practitioner. It could be a pujari, a priest, or it could be you. See, you may have been given a deity sculpture. You may have a Ganesh sitting on your desk. But in order to bring that Ganesh to life, there must be the interaction with him, the honoring of him. And if you want to extend it into rituals, you can, which is what I do, working with the different substances. So your altar, what's so interesting over time, is going to stop feeling like an object. Let's say your Ganesh that is on your altar. So the altar is the whole space that you have set up. So maybe the Ganesh is sitting on your desk. He's not part of an altar yet. He's just sitting there staring at you. And you say, oh, in order to really create a relationship with him, I want to create an altar for him. And that is a designated spiritual space for him. And that altar, that whole altar becomes a force field, a field of consciousness, a place of connection, a place of remembrance. And your altar does not have to be elaborate. It does not need to look like something you've seen online. It comes from your inner guidance. It can be very simple. It can be, I always I often tell people this often it comes up in Reiki class, actually. People ask me, oh, how do I create an altar? And you don't have to have an altar to do Reiki, but it comes up in class. So it can be very simple. It can be a table with a candle, a flower, a meaningful image like Ganesh. It could be a picture of the Virgin Mary, a cloth, prayer beads, a mala. What matters is your sincerity, your connection, your commitment to creating an ongoing relationship. Devotion is going to matter more than aesthetics. And what's going to happen is your relationship is going to deepen so much that you want to naturally make the space beautiful and also protect your altar. Your altar is the vortex of your home from where all miracles occur. So the vortex starts within you, the little spark within you, and as you interact with your altar, that altar becomes a living representation of the force within you, of the essence within you, of the light within you. You're now connecting with the light of the divine, and it is personified in the altar that you have created. So I think many people secretly long for this kind of sacred relationship, and this is something I want to tell you that is created. You don't have to long for it. You can create it. That all altars, all of this spiritual connection is created. So that man who from whom the Hanuman temple emerged, he created that relationship. And now, lo and behold, there is, without a coincidence, it's not a coincidence. It is through that seeker's activity there in that space that the Hanuman altar and now temple has been created. So if you already have an altar in your home, perhaps this episode is an invitation to connect with it more consciously. If you don't have one, perhaps this is your sign to begin creating one, even a small sacred space for yourself. And I can talk about this more in other episodes, where your altar should be placed. And I never really say should. So it's going to be personal choice, but there is some guidance about that, about really what works best. And the altar becomes somewhere to pause, somewhere to listen, somewhere to remember. Before I end, I just thought of another story, and I hope you'll indulge me when this is coming up, because I'm thinking of that Hanuman temple. So I would return to it every year when I would visit my guru, and now that temple has a pujari, an acting priest, and it has a regular schedule of worship, and people go there. So one of the things they do at temples in India is they encourage, or as part of the Vedic path, they encourage not only the chanting of mantras, but the writing of mantras. So I went to this temple one year. I was visiting Guruji, and I went there, and the pujari, the priest, the Vedic priest, did some prayers for me. And again, now the temple has progressed, so it has more accoutrements. And when I was leaving, he handed me a little booklet for free, of course. It was just something he gave me. And I looked at it, and it wasn't in English. It just had some writing on it. And then he said to me, this is for your writing of mantras. He said in, probably not in English. So somebody translated for me. And I said, oh, okay. And I asked what it said, and it's a mantra to Hanuman. So, so it was filled with blank pages, with lines on the pages. So I went back to Guruji, and he said, how was your experience at the temple? And I said, oh, it was wonderful. And I said, the pujari gave me this. And he said, oh, good. Okay, good. And then he talked to me about the mantra that had been conveyed to me through the pujari. And he said, yes, that's perfect for you right now. That's what Hanuman wants. And you'll fill up that book. You'll write that mantra. So I thought, okay. So I went home back to America, and I used to keep that booklet next to my bed. So I would write the mantras before I went to bed, the mantra, over and over and over again. And then months went by, and it was time for my next trip to India, and the book was almost filled up. And so I thought, okay, I have a few more pages left in this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to write the rest of it in India, in every temple that I visit, until I finish, and then I'll go back to the Hanuman temple and give it. And so I did that, and we went to all sorts of beautiful, amazing, gigantic, and elaborate and ancient temples where the force field is so incredible, and even the densest of human beings, and we all get dense on different levels, could certainly feel presence, I would say. So when the time came, the group that I had been leading was returning to the U.S., and I was staying on to study with Guruji. And I went to study with him, and I said, oh, I finished my booklet here, so I want to return to the temple. And he said, yes. And so I returned to, and anyway, I wanted to return. So I took an auto rickshaw, or a driver, I don't remember, drove me to the temple. And it was right close to his Guruji's home. And I went in, did some prayers, and then the pujari did the blessing with me, and I proudly handed over my booklet. I was so proud of myself, and I felt like great achievement because it had taken me months to do it. And as it should, which is fine. These things don't get rushed. So the value is in the doing of it and the patience and everything. So as I'm walking out of the temple, the pujari comes after me and hands me another booklet. And I thought, oh my gosh, I just finished one booklet. Oh, he's giving me another one? And I thought, oh, how long is this going to take? So listen to all the insights I'm having. How long is this going to take? This is going to take forever, my friend. The interaction with the divine is never ending. It's never going to stop. But isn't it so funny that I thought I had completed this task? I was done. I was good to go. So he gives me another booklet. Okay, so I go home. I go back to Guruji, and then I said, he gave me another booklet. And Guruji says, okay, good. So you complete another booklet. So I go back to the US, and oh gosh, and this time I started working with my booklet, but I wasn't as diligent. I was not as diligent. And months went by, and I had many pages left in it to complete. But I was going to India, and I was taking another group. So I brought the booklet with me, and this time I thought, given everything we were doing with the group, and counting the pages, I'm thinking I'm never going to be finished by the time I get to the temple. So our groups are very, very amazing and fun and transformational. So I was telling this kind of Leela. Leela is like a divine play of God, of the divine, to some of the attendees on the trip. And I said to them, listen, if you guys want to help me out, we can all get benefit from writing these mantras. And it's a spiritual practice. And so it would be an offering for all of us. And so, of course, they were all game for it. I don't know if this was something I was technically supposed to do. But anyway, so the booklet got passed around through the group. And I taught everyone this mantra. And they wrote it. They wrote it and wrote it and wrote it. And we had great laughs over this too. One of the guys on the trip said, "Oh, you're just giving us this booklet because you're diverting your spiritual responsibility to finish that booklet." And we were laughing. And nevertheless, he helped me out too. So we all wrote in this booklet. And then it was time for the group to go back. And I don't believe they joined me at the temple. It was not, we weren't able to, I don't think, fit it into the itinerary. So they went back. And I went to see Guruji and I said, "Oh, I have another booklet." And he said, "Okay, good." So I went to the temple and I made sure there were still a few lines that I would complete myself. So I completed it. And this time when I gave it an offering to the sweet souls who had come with me to India, many of whom I see afterwards, and some of whom, you may not see again. And in that slice of time, we had shared such beautiful moments together. So I offered it for all of them. But this time, the pujari was at lunch. Actually, the temple was closed. It was just closing, and the pujari had left. So the temple assistant allowed me to come in, and I did my prayers, but I did not see the deity. The deity, they had already closed the altar doors, and the pujari had left. So I did some prayers. I left my booklet with the assistant who was there, and he said he would give it to the pujari. And I left. And no booklet was given to me, because usually the pujari was handing it to me. And when I left, I thought, it was kind of funny, because I thought, in one sense, I thought, I made an escape, so I'm not getting an assignment again to write in a booklet. And in another sense, I was sad, of course. And I wanted to go back and see the pujari and the deity, but as our schedule went, I was not able to time it. So when I returned to America, I had no booklet for that year. And I thought, that temple is always in my heart. And that experience in writing those mantras was always with me. And then, of course, I thought, I don't need a booklet. You see, any notebook can be your offering to the divine. And so I started what had been a chore for me, in some sense, to write mantras. I started the practice again. And this time I do it in my own notebooks. So as an aside, when you return the booklet, what's interesting to the pujari, they dispose of it in some ceremonial way. Sometimes these are buried. Sometimes they may be ceremonially burned. It might be placed into a temple fire ritual. It might be stored in a sacred area. I actually never asked what they do there at that particular temple. It has to do with the custom of the temple. So what I learned about this and how does this relate to an altar? And I know this episode is long. If you're still with me, thank you for listening. This relates because your experience is always a communion. It's always a relationship. It's always an ongoing experience where you are learning lessons. You are giving offerings. As I gave those mantras and as I gave all my sorrow and stress and prayers, because many times when you write mantras or when you chant mantras, you're coming to them with all your problems. You sit down and your mind is going, and then you focus on the mantra. And that is what calms the mind. It is medicine for the soul. And so I guess I'll end there. I know I went on a little tangent. I hope it was helpful to you. Remember that your altar is an ongoing experience, and it is what you make of it. It will speak to you, it will support you, it will uplift you, and it will provide really miraculous answers in your life, if you can hear them. And so the whole practice of slowing down and going within is about getting serene enough that you can hear, see, intuit, feel internal guidance. Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Om Sai Ram. Jai Guruji. Om Amrite Shwariye Namaha. Hare Krishna. Om Namah Shivaya.